I plan on trying to be here again tomorrow. If you have bill introductions, we'll open it up for that tomorrow. You know, the deadline's next Monday, I think, so, but this would be, tomorrow would be our last chance in this committee. So I think, oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let you know that I do have some bill introductions this week. Thank you.
Do you have them for today?
No.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the draft. Thank you.
Okay. Well, get your RS number and we'll try to take care of that tomorrow. Let's go ahead and open it up before we get into the hearing for bill introductions. Does anybody here in the committee have anything that they've talked with our revisor?
Yes.
Do. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have RS number 22 RS 2637, an ad concerning the School for the Deaf.
Okay. I remember speaking with Representative Rissman, so that's his bill. Okay. Without objection, we will introduce that as a committee bill. Anybody else? Again, I heard one for tomorrow, and we'll take care of that tomorrow. So we will close the introduction of bills and jump into the hearing on House Bill 2466. We will open with a summary by our revisor, Jason Long. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 2466 would enact the Promoting and Advancement in Computing Knowledge Act. You should have a summary memo at your seat from our office. The act would require that beginning in school year 23-24, each public high school must offer a course in computer science that is high quality, conforms to the state standards for computer science, and is offered in an educational format tailored to meet the needs of the students who are enrolled in the course. Then the bill would require, beginning in school year 25-26, that students who are enrolling in 9th grade of that year and each class thereafter would be required to pass a computer science course in order to graduate. I will note that the graduation requirement would be subject to the students' accommodations if they have an IEP or a 504 plan. And also I will note that the graduation requirement provision in particular is set to expire on July 1st of 2025, which would be the July before the start of the 25-26 school year. And so before that graduation requirement would actually become effective, the legislature would need to take further action to either eliminate that sunset or do something else with that provision in order for that graduation requirement to actually go into effect. It is not going to go into effect as the bill is currently written. The bill 2466 also makes a couple of appropriations. First, it appropriates $1 million to the State Board of Education. This is in Section 1 of the bill to award grants to high-quality professional learning providers to develop and implement professional development programs in computer science instruction. The high-quality professional learning provider is defined in the bill as any public or private entity that has successfully designed, implemented, and scaled high-quality professional learning for teachers and is approved or recommended by the State Board. The State Board is directed to prioritize the grants that they award with that $1 million appropriation to school districts that work in partnership with these providers, proposals that describe strategies to enroll female students or students from marginalized racial and ethnic demographics, or 3 proposals from rural or urban areas that experience difficulties in providing computer science offerings. And then there's an annual reporting requirement by each grant recipient back to the State Board. And then finally, the bill would appropriate another $1 million to the State Board of Regents to award scholarships of up to $1,000 to applicants who are in pre-service, getting their degree in education, and who complete a course in computer science. And there are some priorities for the awarding of those scholarships, such as underrepresented groups and degree candidates who agree to teach computer science in rural schools or schools with higher percentages of students from underrepresented groups. So there's a prioritization there for the Board of Regents in awarding those scholarships. The money for the Board of Regents could also be used to develop and implement pathways in computer science education to assist these pre-service teachers in obtaining a certification to teach computer science. The bill would go into effect on July 1st of 2022. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nick. And I just want to clarify, I said something at the last meeting in regards to the graduation requirement, and so I'm just going to jump in. You did a great job of explaining a sunset. A lot of people are not aware of how sunset works, but there was confusion to the point of my intent that I've been working with Nick on some balloon language where I am going to address that and not have the graduation requirement in there the way it's written. I want a recommendation for it. I still want the sunset in there so we can review progress, but there was just a lot of people that were getting hung up. And the reality is we're not ready. This bill is going to be a focus on getting us just there, but I just wanted Nick to maybe even talk about how we could keep the intent of a goal, keeping the sunset, but putting everybody at ease that we would not have a graduation requirement in this bill that we're clearly not ready to achieve at this point in time. So I don't know if you can add anything other than the fact that when we have that language ready, I'll get it out to the committee to review. But even as people are preparing to testify, I mentioned that last year, and I know there might be people that weren't here last week because of things being so hectic with being on the floor. But it was always my intent to promote computing science, getting classes offered, teachers trained, and dealing with that graduation requirement where it's going to be a goal or recommendation and not a hard and fast requirement that will be kept in the bill. So does anybody in the committee have questions in regard to that? Nick might be able to explain it better than I just did, but Representative Sanders.
So how many semesters are you thinking that it would take to meet the graduation requirement if that's a part of it?
Well, this had the recommendation where it would be evaluated after the sunset, which was, I think, the 2025. And so it's still going to be a goal, but,
But could somebody complete that requirement in a semester? Would it take a full year?
This bill doesn't spell that out, in regards to, and that's something I believe that we can continue to work on. The graduation requirement isn't so much what individual students would be taking, it's the fact that, we only have about 25% of our school districts right now offering a class. And so that's why we're not ready. It's not how many semesters, it's the fact that we need to be getting more classes offered, more teachers trained, and that's the primary focus of this bill.
All right, and then one last thing. If the graduation requirement is put in there, how many things then would there be? Would this be the fifth, sixth, seventh thing that would be required for graduation? Do we know what that number is?
There's 21 credit hours that are required right now, and there are certain things. There's actually a task force working on updating those right now, and I'm on there, and I'm going to put the recommendation down from my perspective that it needs to be on the radar as we move forward and get closer with more classes offered and teachers trained. And I'm hoping that task force will make a recommendation that it's something that we are working towards, but we're not ready for it at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions from committee? Representative Poskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there is a task force working on high school graduation requirements right now. Yes. And if this turns out not to be in harmony with the work done by that, it will still be in statute, correct?
Well, and that's why I'm going to be working on balloon language to remove anything in this bill that would not be in statute as far as a graduation requirement. That won't be in the bill after the balloon language would be addressed when we work the bill. Further questions? All right. Oh, go ahead. Did you have another one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is, when you said that there's only about 25% of the schools that are offering computer sciences. Is there someplace we can look to see what specific buildings are?
Yeah, and I think we have people testifying that can maybe speak to that. And we also have somebody that was here last week that works with code.org that evaluates all 50 states that can talk. But most of the schools in Kansas that offer are in our urban areas. They have some built-in advantages. I know I was just talking with my Mays superintendent, and they do great things, but a lot of the rural school districts don't. And the good thing about this bill, and you'll hear more from Professor Deloche, is he has a class that's ready right now for online teaching across the state, and he'll speak to that. But so we have the resources right now for anybody in the state, any school district that wants to teach, or any student that wants to take a class, they can do it right now. And that's one of the things about this bill, is to promote what's already available, to build on the successes we already have, and just to get more offerings out there.
Thank you.
Representative Poskins, you have a follow-up?
Well, this isn't about the graduation requirement, it's about the scholarship.
Okay.
Does it obligate the awardees of the scholarships, or the scholarship recipients, to service obligation in the state of Kansas?
I did not think I put that in there. I would ask Jason to clarify, but I don't think that was something that.
No, it does not. It is just to who have taken a computer science course to help with their expenses and tuition expenses while they're getting their education degree.
That's something the committee could look at when we work the bill.
So it does prioritize candidates who agree to teach computer science, but it doesn't create a service obligation,
No.
the way the Kansas State Service Scholarship does, teacher scholarship.
We could look at that when we work the bill again. We got a lot of people here to testify too, so we're going to go ahead and open up for testimony. And again, I've already done some of my intro from here, but I am going to say a few more remarks and then open it up to the rest of the conferees. Thank you, committee, and thank you for everyone who's here. I've been doing this for a long time, and I get excited when I testify on a bill that I really am passionate about. Worked hard last year on a bill dealing with civics, and I had a little bit of fun last year with the Wolf Pack. So when I named this bill, it's called the PAC Bill, Promoting the Advancement of Computing Knowledge Act. You all who were PAC members last year, I want you to step up and help me get this bill passed. But for those who weren't on board with last year's bill, I think this is a bill that you can get behind and support. With the changes that I've talked about already, I'm really trying to remove any confusion or controversy and focus on the immediate need. And that's the primary intent of this bill, is to get more teachers trained and more classes offered. So, there's a lot I could talk about, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what the intent of my bill is. And we have a lot of great people here to testify. So I'm going to sit down and, I can talk more when we work the bill, but I don't want to use the time of this committee speaking when we can hear from conferees, and we have quite a few of them. But I would encourage you to take a hard look at this bill. If you have questions, talk to me. Let's figure out a way to get it passed and get it on the floor, because I believe that more than anything that we can do right now that will impact our kids and our grandkids and getting jobs for the future, 70%, that's the number that was given to us by Andy Schlapp from Wichita State when he spoke to us last spring when we had the informational hearing, are going to require these skills. And we're behind. And you might ask, well, why is that? I saw 6-7 years ago what numerous states were starting to do back then, including Arkansas, and this bill is modeled after Arkansas. One of my first bills as a committee chairman was looking at computing science to get it to count as a science and math credit, because I thought that would be a prime to help get that, this area going. And I know a task force was appointed, and we've made some progress. We've done some good things in Kansas. That it took 3 years to get that simple little idea before the state board and approved last June. But we're at a point now, even after last June, when I felt like more needed to be done, there needed to be more urgency. That was the impetus for this bill. That's why this bill now, we need to all, this bill in my mind primarily is a marketing tool, and you're all going to be a part of my PR campaign to get it done. There's a lot of good people behind me that are going to help get it done, but this should be non-controversial, non-partisan, and it should be easy to get out of this committee, easy to get to the floor. Let's get this done. And with that, I'm going to open it up to the other conferees. When I had a press release last August, you were one of the first people that contacted me, and I'm just excited to help promote the work that you've been doing. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Hubert and the members of the House Committee on Education. My name is Scott Deloach, and I'm department head at the Department of Computer Science in the Carl R. Ice College of Engineering at Kansas State University. I am a proponent of this bill, and I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you and provide some more information. Okay, we all know that Kansas is behind in this particular area. And what I want to talk to you about today is a program we have at Kansas State University that can really hit a lot of the concerns that we have. How are we going to get classes created? How are we going to train teachers? We've been working on that for a while. In fact, in 2018, we at K-State Computer Science created what we call the Computational Core Initiative. The goal was to create a set of online computer science courses to teach to non-computer science students. So computer science more for the masses, okay? Less theory, more practical application. Since that time, Kansas State University, the college, Carl R. Ice College of Engineering, and the Department of Computer Science have worked together to fund this initiative. At K-State, the computational core classes that we have created so far are used already in creating a computer science certificate, which allows any student within Kansas State University to get a 17-hour certificate that shows their expertise in computer science. We also have an integrated computer science degree where you basically pair computer science with any other field in the university, and you can get an integrated computer science degree. Again, with the idea that computer science is not a standalone thing. It is going to apply to every field, every endeavor we do from now on. Okay. In spring 2021, we actually started teaching classes at Manhattan Christian College for the computational core. They were our first private college that is using these classes. We're currently in talks with Dodge City Community College about using these classes. Again, these are online classes. They're easy to be delivered anywhere in the state. Okay, but since the beginning, we've had a vision of using these courses to teach our high schools across the state of Kansas. Okay. It's perfect for the situation we find ourselves in today. We call this our cyber pipeline program, and the goal is really to provide high quality computer science education at a reasonable cost. There are three parts to this program. One is curriculum, the second is instruction, and the third is teacher preparation. The curriculum was created by our K-State faculty, and all of the people involved in curriculum creation actually do research in computer science education. So these are the perfect people to create this kind of program. So we've produced a state-of-the-art curriculum that uses the latest techniques and educational practices, and we incorporate a variety of different types of teaching methods within these courses. Okay. It's all built on an online educational, it's a computer science specific educational platform called Codio. It involves a number of short, engaging videos, very short e-textbooks. Well, they're actually 100 or 200 pages, but they're still short compared to most standards. And really, the nice thing about it only requires that students have a laptop or a Chromebook and a stable internet connection to be able to take these courses. Okay. Now, the instruction actually comes from K-State faculty through those short, engaging videos. Okay. But we still have the high school teachers in the classroom, and so they still provide some face-to-face discussions, provide extra examples to help the students learn. But the key is the high school teachers don't have to be the final expert. They can rely on our faculty. If they have questions, student asks a question, they go, I don't know, let me email faculty at K-State. You get the right answer from an expert, and then you can go back to the students. Okay, what we would really like to create, and this is, we don't have this yet, but we want to create a 7-day-a-week help desk kind of situation where any student, any teacher in the state could call in, email, chat, however you get to your help desk, and ask questions 7 days a week. Now, the nice thing about the Codio environment is that the person on the help desk side could actually log in to see exactly what's going on their desktop. So it's like somebody's looking over your shoulders, just like having somebody there. And they can say, oh no, you know, in the second line, you need to think about doing this instead of what you're doing here. Okay, that's something we'd like to do. Of course, we also have the major problem of getting qualified teachers. And there's a couple of problems with this. One is getting the teachers qualified, and the second part is keeping qualified teachers. I'm here to tell you, computer science students who graduate K-State make an average of $70,000 a year out the door. My son works for Twitter, and after 4 years, he makes more money than I do, and that's multiple hundred thousands of dollars. So it's hard to keep the good people. So the cyber pipeline, though, actually has its own teacher preparation program, which has been part of our plans from the beginning. We basically got an internal grant from Kansas State to create this program, and we started it in the summer of 2021. We had it's a 6-week summer program where the teachers, actually there's 2 parts to it. The first part is they actually go through the course material themselves. Most of the teachers have seen a little bit of computer science but really don't know. So they have to learn computer science before they can help teach it. And the second part is then they get together in weekly Zoom sessions, talk about pedagogy, how would you present this in the classroom, and how would you do that? Okay. As part of this grant, also we are looking at preparing for teacher preparation programs both at the undergraduate and graduate level. We also have created a teacher's guide that helps step the teachers through, provides additional examples and things for the teachers to do in class with their students. The teachers, like I said, can contact the faculty directly anytime they have a question, anytime they need help. Now, another goal we have for the cyber pipeline is they're not just high school classes or they're not just college classes. We want to create a pathway of education from high school through community colleges to 4-year colleges where essentially you can take a class in high school or 2 classes in high school, then take the next class in community college or go to the 4-year college. You can take that same class. Once you get to Kansas State, you can finish out your degree, and these are all the same classes. They are the exact same classes you would take in college that you would be taking in high school. In addition, the first 2 classes are equivalent to the AP Principles course and the AP CSA course. So students that could take these classes in high school and take those AP exams, and they should do very well. The first cyber pipeline course was taught at Manhattan High School in fall of 2020. Really, for the most part, everything went well. Our biggest problems, as you might guess, were with COVID. The students were not in the classroom more than once a week, which made things very difficult. But this last fall, we had 6 additional high schools that came on board. They're all doing very well. The high schools are doing much better this fall than they did that last fall. So things are going well there. Like I said, we had our first summer training program in 2021. We had 6 teachers from the 6 new high schools we had this last fall. Teachers found this to be very useful. And we're currently recruiting high schools right now for our summer training this summer and starting teaching classes this fall. So overall, I think you can say the K-State Cyber Pipeline program has already been a success. We've taught over 400 students, both at college and the high school levels. We've created a process that will keep this continually updated, continually state-of-the-art. We model it after our software development processes that are very nimble and agile. We can demonstrate that it's very economical to create a new set of courses at a new school. And in fact, we can do it in a matter of days. The school itself usually takes a lot longer to get the courses set up, the teachers set up. And it's much cheaper and faster than having individual teachers at individual high schools create their own courses, even using pre-existing curriculum and starting those in their school. So I believe this bill is a major step forward in providing Kansas students with skills they need to be successful in the 21st century, and which in turn will create a workforce for Kansas to allow it to thrive in that economy. And I think the Cyber Pipeline courses are an easy way for us to transition into that very, very quickly. Chair Hubert, thank you again, and members of the House Committee on Education for the opportunity to testify on this bill, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
And I'm going to hold questions. I wanted to give you a little extra time, and we got about 12 plus. So I'm going to do about 5 minutes for everybody else. But I just wanted to clarify one thing you said. I've had some people asking me as far as content, and is this only about coding? And that's not the case from what I just heard you said. And, my bill is silent in regards to content. It just needs to meet state standards that have been developed by the Department of Education and the state board. So, from what you said, I just wanted to clarify that that's accurate.
Yes, the first course is equivalent to the AP Principles course, which teaches a lot about how computing is used, where it's used, what you can do with it, where you can go with it, and only a small part of that course is actually coding.
I just wanted to clarify that because I've gotten a lot of questions on that issue. So thank you again, and we'll hold for questions at the end. I'm sure there will be some for you. Next up is Blake Flanders from our Board of Regents. Thank you for being here, Blake.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Hubert and members of the committee. We support certainly our section of House Bill 2466 that speaks to the training of teachers. We wouldn't have enough knowledge on K-12 to weigh in on that piece, but certainly we know from what we've heard from the last conferee, these skills are now ubiquitous across many jobs. I just looked up our KS degree stats website that was developed in partnership with the Kansas Legislature, and I did notice that the students from Kansas State graduating out of computer science, again, begin almost $70,000 a year, and then after 5 years, they're about at $94,000. So the challenge will be to retain. I would just want to weigh in on putting in a service requirement. And I'll just tell you what it's been from our experience because we administered many of those. They work when the scholarships are large. So for a medical loan program or something like that, they can work. When the awards are small, you'll spend more on the bureaucracy of chasing everyone than you will on getting. So think about a computer science, a company that needs a computer science, someone with computer science skills that also has the discipline and organization of a teacher. They will buy out this scholarship immediately. So we will be chasing all of the compliance students as well. And I just put that in there to say there is a level of bureaucracy that goes along with that. But again, thank you for the opportunity to present testimony.
Thank you. Next up is Katie Hendrickson. She was here last week in person, and for those who were able to make it down the room, she got to speak to us in person because I wanted to honor her being here in person. But she will be joining us on WebEx now. And I've been working with Katie for over 3 years, and she has been a great asset and resource for our state. She is working closely with the Department of Education right now, and she was on the task force that was put into place after my bill in 2019. Katie, are you online right now?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chair Hubert. Members of the committee, I really appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you 2 weeks in a row. So appreciate the opportunity to speak last week and to see everybody here this week. Apologies that I can't be there in person. I'm based out of Ohio, and so couldn't get there 2 weeks in a row, unfortunately. But I do appreciate the opportunity here to testify. So I'm Dr. Katie Hendrickson. I am president of the Code.org Advocacy Coalition. We are a group of over 100 industry and education organizations who advocate for making computer science a core foundational part of the K-12 educational system. We essentially want computer science to be treated just like other subject areas. And so we advocate for things like computer science standards and teacher certification, two things that Kansas has been working on. Code.org itself is a national nonprofit. We do professional development for teachers, and we provide curriculum and engaging activities to engage students in K through 12 computer science. And we also track and report on state policies and on data around computer science education. So there was a question earlier about which schools, that 27% of Kansas high schools that are offering a computer science course. There's a list of those courses that we consider to be foundational computer science, and some more details on the back of my written testimony if you all have that in front of you or on your computers. And you can also go to the website to see the data that we've gotten at code.org/yourschool/access report. And essentially what we've done is looked at schools that are offering one or more of those foundational computer science courses. What we've learned, though, is that although this number sounds low, 27%, there are some bright spots and there is some great work being done across the state of Kansas. And what we're seeing is that it's mostly in those urban areas and in those larger schools where students have access, because more than half of students in the state, high school students, do attend a school that offers it. 57% of Kansas students have access, and 3/4 of the schools in urban areas offer computer science. So what we really need to do in the state of Kansas is make sure that those small school districts, those rural school districts, have the resources that they need to begin offering just a single computer science course. So the model that we promote and what we see works in other states is working with existing teachers of other subjects, working with their school administrators to free up one class period in their teaching day, and getting them to be able to offer just one computer science course during their teaching day. Essentially just giving those kids access. So kids who attend a school that doesn't offer it, now they have that option and they can opt into it while they're in high school. So they don't have to wait till they're in college or they're just leaving high school to really understand everything that computer science can offer to them. How do we do this? So we've learned some lessons in other states about what works. One of the biggest things that matters and what we really support in this bill is funding for preparing teachers. We want teachers graduating from universities to know a little bit about computer science because they likely didn't take it when they were in high school. They don't have to take it when they're in college. And so if they know just a little bit, even those elementary school teachers, if they know just a little bit about sequencing and loops and what they can do to engage their students in things like robotics, that's going to make a big difference. And then for those in-service teachers, if we can get training to send them to a summer professional development and help their school prioritize this, then they can start offering it in the summer. What we've seen across the country is most states have now started allocating grant programs specific to training teachers and getting them prepared in computer science education. And that does make a difference in offering an access for students. Arkansas, for example, has virtually every school offering it. They've multiplied the number of students who are taking computer science, and they've put $15 million so far into this computer science education initiative. They have $3.5 million per year still going to that initiative to sustain it. We've seen states like Pennsylvania put $20 million per year towards computer science. So this bill with $1 million for professional development, $1 million for pre-service educators. This is wonderful. It's going to start what we need in Kansas, but it's certainly not nearly enough, and it's not the end. So we want to make sure that this is sustained and can grow from here. So I mentioned pre-service teachers. This is something that we also want to consider. So we're not just looking at the in-service teachers, but make sure that we are preparing those teachers in colleges to graduate ready to teach it. Overall, just to summarize, we support the intent of this legislation to expand access to computer science courses and to provide these funding programs. So I am happy to answer any questions about what code.org has seen across other states, policy-wise or implementation-wise, or any other states that have good examples that Kansas might be able to learn from and to implement. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and we're going to save questions, but I'm sure you're somebody that people will want to ask questions to, so hopefully in about, I'm thinking 45 minutes, we'll get to the questions. But next up is Joy Akins, and Joy was one of my appointees to the task force 3 years ago. And thank you for accepting that appointment and being here to testify.
Thank you, Representative Hubert and members of the committee. Thanks for hearing this bill today. My name's Joy, as he said, my name is Joy Akins, and I own a small business in Wichita, Kansas called Cornerstone Data, where we use computer science every day. And I did work on the Kansas Computer Science Task Force in 2019, and I also served on the Wichita School Board in the past, and I'm a past chair of the Flagship ks.gov Education Committee and a founding board member of that organization. When I was on the task force, we brought back 5 recommendations, and these were starting point recommendations that we brought back in 2019. And a few of them have been approved. They've all been approved. A few of them have had progress, and some of them haven't, and some of them are stalled. And this is the beginning. This is what we think is the beginning of what we need to do to address the disparity we have here in Kansas so that we can compete for the kinds of jobs and the lifestyle that's coming for our kids. I said in my testimony, the work has been painfully slow, and that might be, it's hard to find words to describe how painfully slow this has been. And we know that some of that's because there's been a pandemic and there's a lot of arguing, and honestly, we're asking a lot of people in the back of the room and a lot of people in the front of the room who've argued for a long time about a lot of different things in education to find a way to work together. And so it's okay to have disagreements about how we do this, but let's figure out how to do it and move it forward together. And so I appreciate Representative Hubert and your heart in wanting to do that and talking about that with us last week. So what I want to talk to you today about is why computer science is important, because my experience has been when we talk about computer science with people who don't work in that industry, we have some similar things. One, people don't understand what we're talking about, and my husband glazes over when I talk about it at home sometimes. And people tend to go to things that they do, that they've heard, like the words coding, right? And we've already heard that question today. And I think those are important things to address. Another thing we hear a lot about when we talk about this is that we have all these CT courses in coding and robotics available for students in Kansas. And don't get me wrong, we're really excited about those. Those are good things that we're doing. But you're going to hear from several people that have gone all over the state talking and trying to raise awareness about this issue so people can understand what it is from the technology industry. But it's not because this is necessarily a workforce issue. It is, but it's because since we work in technology, we see what's happening across the country and across the world, and we see that our kids that are in school are falling behind, and we want to help Kansas lead the way. So that's why we do this. So I'm going to think for a minute. Just imagine with me, imagine you have a child or a grandchild who goes to a school that did not, in their core foundation of their education, there was no biology. They never planted a seed. They never learned about the importance of soil content or studied the mechanics of cell division and DNA, or maybe they never learned that a heart has 4 chambers and how it pumps blood to your body. Imagine that your child's only opportunity to study biology was in a med tech CTS course in high school, one that only a few students qualified to take. And maybe it was taught by a business teacher who sort of pieced together their certification and professional development from some nonprofits that offered courses on their own time. Would that be acceptable for a child in Kansas? None of us would be happy with that. But that's how we treat computer science in Kansas today. Many of our kids don't have any access to principles of computational thinking, and we ask the rest of our students to take those CTE courses to satisfy their education. Classes that are often taught by incredible teachers who've done all kinds of work to try and get what they need to learn to do to teach those classes, but there's no standard around it for them, and the process is difficult and costly. And it matters because computational thinking or computing knowledge is more than just coding. Coding is like the grammar. You know, in English, you had grammar, and if you're as old as I am, you had to diagram sentences as part of your grammar. Remember that process? Yeah, that was kind of the boring part of literature in my mind. I mean, I liked it because you could draw something, but it was grammar, not that exciting. But computational thinking is so much more than that. It's learning how to break problems down into smaller pieces and how to find patterns and sequences in those problems, and then learning how to build algorithms that solve those problems. And then the final piece of that is writing a piece of code to instruct a computer how to solve that problem. Then they learn to test those processes and see if they work and find and fix the errors they created. So I need to think about when I was a kid, if you didn't know how to program your VCR, your grandparents did, and they bring you over, you do that for them, and it was a joke. It's still a joke, right? Some of you are shaking your heads, you remember that time. It was a joke if you didn't know how to do that. Or if you know, in our house, there's a person in my house who struggles with his phone, and when he can't get it to do what he wants, he's frustrated with it, or grandma's having trouble. You know, it's funny, it's a joke. It's not a joke for our kids. If they don't know how to troubleshoot a problem with their browser or troubleshoot a problem in the computing world, they are going to find themselves struggling to find employment and living a life of quality, because everything they do in a day, whether it's their, on the way up here, my car was giving me weather warnings, or my phone is giving me directions. If I don't know how to do those things in 20 years, whatever those things look like in 20 years, if I can't do them now, I'm not going to be prepared then. And that's why it's important. We're putting our kids behind the curve, and we're going to have to ask them to catch up. We've already, you know, in my testimony, I talked about a couple of different companies that have had big stories in the news about how they're using technology. These are just the start, but I want to end with talking about Arkansas, which you'll hear a lot about Arkansas, or Arkansas, as we like to call them here. And mainly that's because they've led the nation in turning this around in their own state. But I want to leave you with this one thing. In 2019, 2020, I was reading one of their reports, and I put their computer science initiative here for you to go look at. And they were talking about, you know, they've added all these women and all these minorities to their classes, and they've leveled the playing field for their children across their district. And now or across their state. Now they're saying, what are we going to do next? And they put a task force together. And one of the things that task force is doing is building a cybersecurity industry in Arkansas. Now, if any of you are from South Central Kansas, like I am, you will know that we have a fledgling cybersecurity industry right across the state line from them. So who are they coming after? They're building the workforce now that we're going to need for that industry. And are we going to give it away, or are we going to take steps to try and help our kids have the same, start from the same place in that competition with another state? Because right now, they don't have it. So thank you very much. And I'm sure I went over, but sorry.
In committee, we are going to be having an update on cybersecurity in our schools. There's been some studies done, and that's something to look forward to. Next up, we have 3 people from Flagship testifying, one's in person. And I would just ask Ashley kind of to speak for the group, and then that Ben and Sierra would kind of add or hit highlights that you don't hit, because I want to get time for questions, so we're going to try to stay a little bit more on point on getting this moving. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Representative Hubert, and all the committees. Thank you for your time today. My name is Ashley Scheidemann. I am the Executive Director of Flagship ks.gov. Flagship Kansas is a nonprofit trade organization for the tech sector here in the state of Kansas. We work on raising awareness, workforce pipeline development, and educational initiatives that directly impact the tech sector. Just quickly, according to Cyberstate's 2020, information technology employment in Kansas surpassed 95,000 workers in 2019 and currently sits at 98,811 tech workers. In fact, in 2019, there were 95,208 tech workers, which translates into 6.4% of the state's workforce. Kansas is home to more than 5,000 tech businesses, and the median tech occupation wage in our state is over $71,000, 79% higher than the median wage for all occupations in our state. So as you may know, and as you've heard today, there is a gap in the number of open tech positions in the state and the number of students who are prepared to fill these roles. So making computer science more accessible to high school students in their path to graduation will help expose them to opportunities and help Kansas take another step forward in closing the computing workforce gap. Studying computer science opens more economic opportunities than almost any other area of study. And this skill set is in demand not just in the tech sector, but in banking, entertainment, medicine, and more. All students benefit from the creativity and problem-solving skills that are the essence of creating computer software. And learning to code is one of the best paths to entrepreneurship, which then helps create more jobs. So the tech sector in Kansas accounts for $8.9 billion for an estimated 5.7% of the Kansas economy. We used to rely on higher education institutions to push core education and skills into technological advancements. However, the jobs of today and the near-term future are expecting students across all socioeconomic levels and pedigree to understand the core logical concepts behind computer science and computational thinking. Computational thinking embedded in our curriculum seeds our ability to understand the technology that drives our lives, the lives of others, and the new and not so new but adapted careers impacted by extreme technological advancement. So Flagship ks.gov supports the intent of House Bill 2466 to increase access to computer science education and to designate funding for educator professional development and certification. It is vitally important that we invest in our educators in order to increase access to computer science education. So thank you for your time this afternoon and your service to our state. If Sierra or Ben has anything to add, I'll let them go.
Ben and Sarah, if you could just, kind of keep your remarks to adding anything that she didn't say that would be pertinent for the committee, I'd appreciate that. And first, we'll go to Ben Seabury. Thank you, Ben.
Great. Thank you, Chair Hubert and the House Education Committee for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm a executive at a Kansas-based software company, as well as a board member of Flagship ks.gov. And we definitely support the intent of HB 2466. I think just to kind of add on to what Ashley said and what has been brought up a couple different times is entire industries in the state are really changing as a part of the technological revolution. And it's kind of at the pace that we haven't seen since the Industrial Revolution. So, for example, in 2013, Boeing moved from using skilled workers to paint their aircraft to using robots to do that, shifting their workforce from folks who were doing that manual skilled labor to folks who could troubleshoot and work directly with those robots who had an understanding of the technology that was involved with them. This is happening all over the state, from agriculture to accounting to computer science to what we traditionally consider more blue-collar work. So empowering all of our students, whether they go into a traditional computer science education or not, with the basic fundamentals of computing and computing concepts is pretty critical to setting up Kansans for success as we move into the future. There's a lot of other different statistics and examples that I have in my written testimony that I submitted. I encourage everyone to take a look at those. And for the sake of time, I'll wrap up and thank you very much for all the service that you provide to the state.
Thank you, Ben. Next, we'll go to Sierra Bond. Hope I pronounced that name right. Sarah, floor is yours. And like I said, just if there's anything you would like to add to what your other flagship members have said, that would be great. Is Sarah on the... Right now, I don't think we're getting her. We might come back to her, and I'll have my staff continue to see if they can. Sarah, can you hear us? We will come back to you. I can tell that we're having an issue right now, and in order to keep things moving, Heather Morgan from Kansas Association of Community College.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep my remarks short. Our position on the bill is really favorable in terms of the Board of Regents section related to the $1 million for teacher scholarships. Kansas community colleges are teaching computer science in many high schools across the state and have been working with in-service teachers for a number of years on taking some computer science classes to get up to speed, boot camps in the summer. Butler County Community College has one of the nationally renowned cybersecurity programs. So we're working with our current educators to try to get them up to speed. There's no doubt in this room, I don't think anyone argues that we shouldn't be doing more computer science education. But one of the suggestions we would have in the bill is to not only include the scholarship for pre-service teachers, but also for in-service teachers. How do we skill up and skill new as we think about who needs a scholarship? Last year, you all passed the Kansas Promise Scholarship, so that can pay for someone to get their elementary education degree. It's not going to pay for them to get an extra computer science class. If somebody's getting their secondary education degree, that education program, again, is going to be covered, but those extra computer science classes to make them able to be really effective teachers in the classroom may not be included. So you may want to consider that the scholarship could go for in-service or pre-service, and I'm happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
And Jason put a reminder as we work the balloon to consider that point. And again, I also have balloon language I've been working on with Matt Lindsay that opens this up for our independent colleges also. And Matt is here to speak, I think. Yes, welcome to the committee, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Matt Lindsay. I'm the president of the Kansas Independent College Association. So I work on behalf of the 20 nonprofit colleges across the state. I don't think I can add anything to the substance of the bill that you've heard from Dr. Deloche and Ms. Hendrickson. I think they're far smarter about that part than I would be. I come to you as a neutral because we think, while we support the purpose, we think the higher ed grant should include the teacher education programs that are nonprofit colleges in Kansas. KICA schools educate 20% of the new teachers every year across the state. So we are a significant part of the pipeline for teachers in Kansas. Moreover, we have a number of growing and strong IT and cybersecurity programs in the private colleges. And I'll single out one. Friends University in Wichita has one of the premier cybersecurity programs in the country now. And they also have a teacher ed program. This grant, we think we should be eligible to apply for it. We don't think we should be guaranteed funds. We just think we should have the chance to say we can contribute to this effort. With that, I'll be happy to answer questions at the right time.
And again, in speaking with you, I'm already working on language that will take care of that.
Thank you.
We have one more neutral and then some people that were listed as opponents. I'm hoping some of the things I said in the beginning will turn those frowns upside down, but let's continue on with Tallman. I can tell already that your frown is turned upside down because you always have a smile on your face. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Mark Tallman, representing the Kansas Association of School Boards, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. We're appearing as neutral because we strongly support the intent and some provisions of the bill. We have several concerns about a section that I'll share with you. Our opposition was the section that the chair has indicated that he's going to remove. In trying to determine what positions we take on bills, we always go back to positions our members have adopted. Our members specifically adopted a statement supporting the Kansans Can vision, which includes increasing post-secondary employment and post-secondary success. We also support the ROSE capacities, which I think most of you are familiar with, that the legislature has supported. And it talks about the need to prepare students to choose and pursue life work intelligently and to compete with surrounding states in the job market. And so clearly the intent of this bill, which looks at those, would be part of that. The sections of the bill that deal with funding, we strongly support. It is certainly consistent with the legislature's role to provide suitable funding for the educational interest of the state and would move this along. In terms of the section on course offerings, there's a couple of concerns that we would make. First of all, we think it is important that there is a clear definition or at least understanding of what would count as a bill, as a course that would meet this. The question was raised, well, is this a semester or not? Do these have to be AP level? What would count toward the code.org report that you heard? Just so everyone's understanding what we're doing. Second, we do think it's important as we try to get teachers to do this, that it be clear that these courses could be made available by districts by working with other providers or consortium with others, so that that's very clear online if necessary. Third thing we would also suggest, we do have concern to putting in a statute the idea that something needs to be done by a particular course and that's the only way to do it. Because to us, the key thing really should be competencies. And as some of our districts are trying to find ways to make sure students can acquire competencies in multidisciplinary ways, we don't want to be locked into saying that the only way to do this is to have a particular unit of credit if there's other ways that can be done. We just observe that maybe one way to advance some of these questions is, I think, something we have kind of done in the past, and that is to have a clear state plan going forward. We have that to an extent, but I don't think it's recognized at this time by code.org, and I know part of the chair's desire is to make sure there is a clear path forward. And then finally, I've got comments on the graduation requirements that we understand are going to be modified. So I'll be happy to take questions at the appropriate time.
And we will get to questions, but I'm really hoping to work closely with your organization on the marketing and promoting of the need for the classes and to getting teachers identified for training. And I would, ask, you had some valid concerns that if you could get those to Jason, we will look at trying to address those as we finish up the plain language. All right, let's continue on. Dr. Brad Newswander is up next. Welcome to committee, Brad. And as he's coming up, I would really like to see that task force get put back together again. Thank you. I just thought I'd throw that in there. That would be one of my goals as we move forward working together. I think having a task force that is actively working on these issues with all of us would be of great value. Welcome, Brad. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I was getting a little stiff back there in the corner. We just want to make it clear from the State Department, the only section that we oppose is to have a college level course as the gatekeeper for any kid to receive a high school diploma. We want to ensure everything we can work with you for kids to get access to high quality courses, training, teacher preparation, helping our rural schools. But we do know that there's nowhere else in our graduation requirements that requires a kid to pass a college level course in order to get a high school diploma. And in the way it's written, that's the kind of course it is. But we would strongly support moving forward how we ensure all kids in every school district have access. One thing we've learned during the pandemic, we have a group of our kids that struggle to be successful in online courses. So once we do make those accessible to a lot of our rural schools, we're going to have to do everything we can to give those teachers and those students the supports in an online environment, because some kids just struggle with that. Many kids we have found were very successful with that, which is great. What can we learn from that? But that's the only reason we were listed as an opponent, is just the rigor of the course. And we know in a lot of our communities, some kids are going to struggle to pass that in order to receive a high school diploma, especially if they're on some other track to a certification or an associate's, that this would be a barrier for them to even qualify for that. So.
And Brad, if you could send clarifying, it was never my intent for a college level class. And bill is silent in regards to, and this is not by any means even with Professor DeLoach's program. This bill is not promoting that per se.
That's
anything that meets.
Our concern is the way we read a course.
Yes.
And that's where I think we could help with that.
Yeah, and if you could send some language that you would think would help in that area to Jason as we put together that, I'd be a great help.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Dr. Scott Smith, Director of Career Standards and Assessments at the Department of Education.
I spoke on his behalf. It was in case one of us was or wasn't here.
All right, glad you're here. All right, we're moving. We're going to have time for questions. I was a little worried there for a second. All right, next up is Lauren Tice Miller, Director of Government Relations and Elections for the KNEA.
Chairman Hubert, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am Lauren Tice Miller. I'm the new Director of Government Relations and Elections for KNEA. And we do believe that computer science classes are important. And we know that students of today are heading straight into a workforce that is unlike any one of us have ever known. And we agree that we must be making every effort to prepare them for success. However, we do oppose House Bill 2466. Specifically, we oppose all of new Section 5. We believe that decisions pertaining to the standards, the curriculum, graduation requirements, even recommendations for graduation requirements should be left to the discretion of the State Board of Education, as they have the constitutional authority and duty to make those. We also believe that the decisions of how those standards and requirements are applied within a curriculum are best left to the local decision-making level, and this includes specifically the course offerings made at those various schools. Our second concern is how will we fill these specialty teaching positions, particularly by 2023? We are already facing teacher shortages for the most fundamental of subjects, and enrollment in our education programs remain historically low. With that said, we do applaud the effort to invest $2 million in professional development, as well as creating incentives through the scholarships for future teachers, but we don't believe it's enough to sustain quality programs. As we heard earlier today, other states have needed to invest far more, and it's just the beginning. As rapidly as the field evolves, teachers would need continuous professional development to stay abreast of the trends, and we would need materials and equipment to be regularly updated to remain relevant. Learning on obsolete technology is not beneficial. Finally, establishing a computer science course within a high school building takes more than just hiring a qualified teacher. It takes additional classroom space and likely the support of an IT department, and it also takes reliable access to internet. The funding piece of this bill is a good start, and if the bill only contained that piece, we would be supportive of it. The other elements we believe should be left up to the State Board of Education, and I would be happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. And I also want to, in talking about changes, besides the graduation requirement in 6 and 5, there was a piece dealing with all by 23 having a class, and I'm going to make that a recommendation, but not a requirement too, as I make changes in this bill to give the flexibility that we need. So just another reminder. I know you're hearing a lot of things, Jason, in regards to as we work on a balloon, but I wanted to make that clear too. We also had one more that was going to be written only, but I think Jim Carlskent, a former member of this committee, is going to be speaking on behalf of USA and the Superintendent's Association. It's good to have you back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to be back and see some familiar faces. It wasn't that long ago I was a member of this committee. But today I'm representing the United School Administrators. Jerry Henn was going to be here, but due to a death in his family, he's not able to. You know, sitting in your chairs, you know, the clock is past 2:30. I won't take much time. The only thing there's a lot of good things in this bill. I think the people that have expressed concerns, United School Administrators have those same concerns with respect to mainly Section 5. We would like to be at the table, you know, when it comes to some changes, and speaking with Chair Hubert, you know, I think he understands how to make this bill a good bill. So I won't take any additional time, but there, you know, the course offerings, full year, semester course, different things like that, graduation requirements. Those are some of our concerns. So I'll stand for questions if you wish. And
We're almost there. And again, if you would like to send, some language that you feel like we could look at, even as we look at balloon language, I would glad for your association to send something to Jason as we pull that together.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. All right. We're getting close to questions. We also have written testimony only. I mentioned Andy Slapp with Wichita State, Jason Watkins with the Regional Chamber, and Kent Eccles with the Kansas Chamber. And I forgot, I just wanted to acknowledge Joy Akins. I think she's going to be the future chair of the South Central Chamber, I think is that accurate? Congratulations on that, and your future assignments in that area. Also, written neutral testimony from Patty Jurish and Judith Deedy. Hope I pronounced your names right. All right, let's get into questions. Did you? Oh, Sarah, do we have Sarah?
Can you hear me now?
Hey, we're glad you're available before we get to questions so that you can kind of add on to the other things that Flagship said that was a part of your testimony that didn't get spoken to when they testified.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and the committee apologize for that technical difficulty. But yes, I am Sierra Bond. I am a lifelong Kansas student. K through 12 was at USD 490, and I studied engineering technology at Wichita State University, where I'm continuing my education to pursue my master's degree. I'm the founder of Let's Go Full Steam Ahead, and I do co-chair for the Education Committee of Flagship ks.gov. And I'm here to share my support of House Bill 2466. And my written testimony does share my personal story in education. But I do believe that it's vitally important to invest in our educators and our students so Kansas can continue to grow strategically, economically, and equitably. The summary of my story is that I was an office aide for 3 years in high school when I could have been taking a computer science course, preparing for my future to become an engineer, but it wasn't an option for me in my coursework or for my peers, and I was immensely unprepared walking into my first computer science class my sophomore year of college. And that sentiment is echoed among my peers, both students, new industry professionals, new Kansas educators. One engineering graduate, Emily, said, quote, "By taking just one class in high school, I was so much more prepared to take my intro to engineering classes, which helped me gain confidence to take on the rest of the program." That course being a computer science course. And another friend, Taylor, she's an educator in an urban school here in Kansas. And when initially speaking with her, she was actually confused about the point of this bill, which I think speaks to your point, Mr. Chair, about marketing and further highlights the importance of funding for teachers that Katie from code.org mentioned. Taylor's confusion hinged on the fact that her students already get iPads and they've been given training on how to use the iPads. But having an iPad is not computer science education. People better than me have defined what computer science education is and what that means for curriculum. But the benefit of teaching meaningful computer science courses is to provide students with those computational thinking skills that Joy mentioned earlier, that students need to thrive academically and professionally. And when we choose to invest in our students by providing these foundational computer science courses and funding for professional development and certifications for educators, we can prepare the next generation of Kansans for college, for the workforce, or for whatever it is their future holds. Because we are in an era of innovation, and in order for us to continue progressing as a society and growing that innovative workforce, we have to set our students and future innovators up for success. Everyone deserves a basic understanding of computer science, and we can do that by pushing this bill through to increase access for students in computer science education, to empower educators through the dedicated funding to receive that professional development and certification. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak in favor of this legislation and to advocate for Kansas students like me. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
We were glad that we were able to get you the chance to speak to us. And we are going to get ready to open up to questions. Before questions, I just wanted to acknowledge somebody else. Nick Coles has been working very hard to promote computing science in the state. He was responsible for pulling together CompuCon that was in Salina just a couple months ago. And he's done a lot of creative things in promoting computing science. I've had some great opportunities to learn from him. And so I invited him to join in just to listen to the testimony and the hearing of this bill. But if he is online, I just again wanted to thank you for your efforts. Let's open it up to questions next. Committee members, I know there's been a lot of information. So Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for Ms. Miller. I'm interested in a line in your testimony that the state has already faced teacher shortages for the most fundamental of subjects. Does the KNEA not consider computer science a fundamental subject in 2022?
We do believe it is an important subject, but we have vacancies in our English classes, our math classes. There are a number of other basic subjects that we have vacancies in.
So computer science is not fundamental in your organization's opinion?
That is not what I said.
No, but I'm asking you, you didn't answer my question, so I'm asking.
We believe it's an important course.
I understand that. Important or fundamental?
As we've heard in testimony today, however, our students have to be able to read and do basic math and all of that before they can take a computer science course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Collins. And others with questions, raise your hand so I can get you in the pipeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm always the one living in a border area to compare what we're doing to other states. I was just wondering if anyone knows do a lot of other states have a requirement similar to this, or is it something that we
That'd
would
probably be
get?
for Katie. I don't know if you addressed the question, but I think she could answer that pretty well. Katie, are you still online?
Yes, I.
Could you give us yeah.
Yes, so there are most states, I believe, actually not yet most, 24 states currently require all high schools to offer at least one computer science course. So we're getting up there, and about half of states do require it. As far as graduation, there are currently 3 states that require all students to take a computer science course in high school before graduation. It's South Carolina, Nevada, and Arkansas.
Okay, yeah, actually, I would have expected it to be more than that as far as required. But anyway, thank you very much, and thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Representative Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure how many questions I have. I have a couple of comments, if that's appropriate. First of all,
and I would ask, as far as comments, those could be addressed when we work the bill. I'm really wanting to get questions out there right now while we have people here to answer questions, but I would ask you to kind of ask questions and then save those for when we work the bill.
Okay, I appreciate that. Could I ask Mr. Nineswander, please? We have recently gone to individual education plans for all students in Kansas education. Would this be something that would be included if that was a particular student's interest, and if that was available? If you had the teacher, you had the expertise and all of the things available for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the route for any kid to be a successful high school graduate, the individual plan of study is a key component to that. We're looking at a lot because if a kid's going to engineering, they're going to have a lot more than the minimum 3 credits to graduate of math. They're going to, they're all going to get 3, but they're going to be at upper levels. A kid that's going to an associate's is a HVAC certification. Their path's going to look different, and their courses are going to be required for them to be successful. So yeah, I think the IPS, or the individual plan of study, is critical. I think, what you look at some of the other states, I think we could get to the point where computer science, or a series of courses that would lead to some kids at a very high AP course level based off their plan of study, or other kids have foundational computer science that might lead them to HVAC because there's coding and all of that. But having those accessible to all kids based on what their trajectory, what their plans, I think is something we would love to work with this committee or to make available and accessible to all kids, but it's unique to where each kid wants to go.
Go ahead.
And follow up on that, obviously to do this is going to require some personnel and some training, and this bill includes that. But how many teachers are we short in Kansas right now?
Well, if you don't mind, the guy behind me that has the numbers, Dr. Stephen King, who is also an author.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not the author you're familiar with.
And I would recognize his efforts also. He was appointed by the Department of Education. I spoke to him this summer, I think it was in July or August, and provided a draft of this bill. And I appreciate the efforts that he addressed our committee last year when we had the informational hearing. Thank you for answering the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I am Dr. Stephen King. I actually, after serving in the Army, I served about 3 to 5 years in point-of-sale systems. So I've done a lot of IT work. 25 years teaching and administering IT programs, computer science programs. I spent 2 years at the Department of Education as the CTE consultant over IT. And now the last 2 years as the academic person over computer science. And the two are a little bit different. To answer your question directly, there are currently 19 teachers in the state of Kansas who have the existing endorsement. Currently, there is not an endorsement required for the computer science courses that we teach, but there are 19 endorsed teachers. 55 teachers currently teaching those courses that once we create the endorsement will be required, and we are working toward creating an endorsement as well. So right now, 55 teachers, if you do the math, there's about 500 public and private high schools in the state of Kansas. So there's a pretty big gap.
And again, I appreciate you being here. I would really strongly encourage, this bill provides some money and a roadmap to get us where we want to be, but bringing back, that task force to work out the nuts and bolts of all that needs to be done, I think would be great to consider at this point in time. So I would strongly encourage that to happen, and I appreciate working with you guys as we move forward to do what's best for our kids. Further questions from the committee? Go ahead, Representative Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, that's fine.
This is my life's work, and I get excited about this, but I do have one more question. And I'm not sure who was the person who mentioned about the number of computer science courses we offer, but my question is, does that include dual credit courses that we do with other colleges or community colleges, as well as the ones that are actually taught in the high school itself?
And that would probably be a good question for Katie too, but then I also saw Stephen, if you have some things you could share. Katie, would you like to tackle that question? And then we'll let Stephen answer too.
Yeah, I actually don't know for sure if this does include dual enrollment courses. If they are coded at the state level and at the school level as one of these 22 courses, then yes, it would be included. That might actually be Stephen might be better able to answer about those 22 course codes that we use.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Stephen.
Yes, thank you. The answer is yes. Many of them are. Yeah, and it gets down to some of the definitions of the courses that are used. When we did the graduate, that they may count for graduation with the Board of Education last June, we used the national definition, which is a very broad definition of computer science, which is the same definition in this bill. And there's only one course in the state catalog that counts according to that definition. And that's the AP course. The thing is that Cable reports to me that there are about 60 to 70% of the advanced credits that are matriculated into post-secondary institutions are actually done through these concurrent enrollment courses, not the AP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having so many questions.
Representative Byers.
So my question, I guess, is to Dr. DeLaRoche, but we were talking about AP classes. The question that I have is if this were to be taught as an AP class, would all the institutions in Kansas recognize that, or would they funnel it into a general computer science elective type credit? And this follow-up question would then be, do we know what the cost is on AP tests at this point?
I do not know the current cost of AP tests. Right now, there's two ways you can do AP. There are certain requirements per school district on determining AP tests. There are, you can take any class, anybody can take the AP exam. Okay, so you don't have to be certified as an AP test or AP course provider. However, we are working with the Collegiate Board right now trying to get our courses certified so they would be certified for the whole state of Kansas. And there would be, so there wouldn't be an extra process or cost or anything associated with that.
I appreciate it. Well, I taught AP music theory for a number of years, and not every institution in Kansas would recognize a student who got a 3-year better on the AP exam as a theory credit. They might recognize it as just a general music credit, that kind of thing. That's what I was asking.
Okay, so yes, as far as college institutions, I think they're all slightly different, and I still think that's the case. I know what we accept for AP exams, and we have certain courses we accept them for. I think that's different at every institution.
All right, thank you.
And I wanted to clarify too, there was never any intent as far as a need for a college class for graduation. And so if there's things that we need to look at and tweak in regards to that, the intent was always to have computing science classes that meet state standards. And again, very open in regards to, how local school districts decide how to do that at the local level. That's the intent for the control to be at the local level. And so Representative Stogg still, I think, is online and had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say, I do think it's exciting to have a bill before us that deserves bipartisan support. And anytime we can do that, I think that really helps the process here in the legislature and also our kids across Kansas. I do like the bill. I think it's got great possibilities. I share some of the concerns about teachers that KASB and KNEA came up with, but also I'm interested in the technical aspect of how we implement this. And I was very interested in the program that Dr. Deloach described at K-State. And I had a question for him. Are there technical things that we should need or that we need to address in order to make this successful? I'm thinking primarily about broadband access across the state.
Right, so like I said, there's a couple of things students need. They need a laptop, a Chromebook or something like that, and broadband access. And actually, I was looking earlier, or this last fall, at broadband access for our school districts. And our school districts actually do very well. We're like 15th out of 50 states in terms of the access for our school districts. There are still a few that would be problematic, maybe 2 or 3, but most of the schools would be fine. Where the problem would be is for students taking that work home. Obviously, some are going to have access, some will not.
Thank you. Hey, and Scott, could you, one of the things I really want to accomplish, even with this hearing as we work the bill move forward, is promoting what's available and working with like I said, the School Board Association. Do you have something that would be something that we could try to get out to the organizations that can help spread the word and promote what's available to meet the need that we have right now? I think even if you send something to Deborah, my committee assistant, I would like to get that type of information out there to the organizations right now that are, like I said, our local school boards and superintendents and teachers to make it's available right now in an online fashion.
We have flyers, a white paper, and there's an online video of me explaining.
Yeah, if you could send us the links to that, and I want to get that out to all my committee members. My goal is to make this summer and what you're doing to make it as big and powerful as possible as far as getting teachers trained and then getting school districts to start taking the steps necessary to offer classes. And again, with the goal, the goal will be that 23 to have all school districts doing that. And again, no requirement, but a goal that we work to, and we do that even now with the work that you've done and what could be done this summer to build on what you started last summer. Further questions from the committee, Representative Poskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Katie Hendrickson. On the 22 courses that are listed, do any of them not have a prerequisite? So I would assume that an AP computer science course would have a prerequisite. Do any of the other 22 courses not have a prerequisite for enrollment?
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe that Stephen King would be the best to answer it. I do want to clarify, though, that AP Computer Science Principles, for example, is intended to be an introductory course, and in many states, it does not have a prerequisite.
Thank you.
Stephen, did you have anything to add?
The College Board does recommend a prerequisite of algebra before you take the CSP course. But most of the courses that are listed on the code.org's 22 courses, in fact, do not have prerequisites.
Further questions, Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for Ben Seabury, if he's still available online. Ben, I noted with interest some of the statistics at the bottom two paragraphs of the first page of your testimony, and I'd just like to give you an opportunity to take a minute or so to quote those stats to show just how far behind the curve we are here in Kansas relative to graduating students with in computer science and high schools that offer it. I don't know if he's still available.
Thank you, Representative Sanders. So about 67% of all new jobs in STEM are in computing. And in the state of Kansas, we have about 4,700 open computing jobs right now. We're only really graduating about 516 in computer science each year. And this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the National Center of Education Statistics. And then when we look at the AP courses that have been taken as well, there are 35 high schools in Kansas who offer an AP course in computer science. And in the last round of courses that were taken, about 297 AP exams were taken by students. 46 of those exams were taken by female students, 31 exams by Hispanic students, and only 5 by Black students. And so the state of Kansas has quite a bit of catch up to do to create equity among all the different groups that we have represented in the state.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? I did get the chance to talk with Randy when he was in Valley Center for the listening tour, and also got to go over to the state board. I think it was October, November. You know, I really, it's my desire for us to work together, you know, in a way that should be a model in a lot of other areas. You know, I've been trying since I became chair of this committee to find ways for us as the Department of Education, the State Board, and the Legislature. You know, we're having the brown bags. This is something where even when Jason gave his testimony to us at the beginning of this committee's start this year about the role of the Legislature and how it's supposed to hand in glove work with these organizations, there's so much we can do to work together to get Kansas where we all want it to be. And I believe this has been a very informative committee, and I know, Jason, you know, we've had a lot of good comments that I want to consider. If you had comments, and again, to Representative Carl, or former, you know, Representative Carlskin, to Brad and to Scott, you know, as I work on that balloon language, you know, get it to Jason and Deborah, and you know, if I can work to get balloon language done in the next week or so, we'll look at taking some time to work on this bill, but I don't want to rush it either. We do have time, you know, as I work with all the group stakeholders to get a good language moving forward. And even as we go from the House to the House floor and to the Senate, there's going to be opportunities to tweak language so it works best for everybody. So let's work together and get something to the governor that she will sign and help us take steps to get opportunities for our kids and our grandkids to get the kind of skills they need to get the jobs of the future. one more chance for questions before I close the hearing. And thank you for all the conferees. Appreciate your patience from last week. That for those that showed up and had to wait a week, I hope it was worth your wait. And I think this was a very good hearing to help us move forward. Seeing no further questions, committee, we are adjourned.